May I invite Professor Pradeep Gopinathan Nair. He is currently Director Cardiology at the Chettinad Hospital and Research Institute from Chennai in Tamil Nadu. And for the next 15 minutes, Professor Nair would be speaking on EECP and CVD protection. Professor Nair, please.
Good morning to all of you. I thank the organizers, especially Dr. Chopra, for inviting me for this, and it's a privilege for me. I will be talking a little bit of experience that I have on enhanced external counterpulsation. And basically, it's a concept on tertiary prevention, the World Congress of Clinical and Preventive Cardiology. I thought this was a relevant subject to talk on. Now, if you see this, the health to death continuum, if you see the late disease, now I'm going to discuss management of late disease. As Dr. Satish Gupta said, that there are quite a few cases who are not amenable to PTCA and CABG in India, considering the quality of vessels, the type of disease. So in this case, what we do is we're not preventing, but we may be able to delay death with this particular modality of treatment. Now, if you see this is very common. Most of us who are intervention cardiologists will see quite a few cases with this type of vessels where we don't know what to do. EF in this case was only 18%. See this, the patient underwent CABG. Now, the previous patient was a 69-year-old male, this a 59-year-old male. This patient is a 49-year-old male, diabetic, CABG done 5 years back. What do we do with this type of patients? We cannot prevent death, but we can at least delay the onset of death. So this particular modality on which I'm going to discuss, first we must understand coronary hemodynamics. I'm sure all of you all know that diastolic flow is the main time when the coronaries get their blood. And if you see, the diastolic pressure time index is the area, the white area is where the energy supply to the myocardium is, and the yellow area is the energy demand. Now, if you increase, theoretically, if you increase the white area in white, we increase the oxygen supply to the blood. And this particular modality uses this physiology, manipulation of physiology. Now, this concept was mooted way back in 1950s, but it's only in 1997, 47 years after it was first mooted, that the US FDA gave approval. Now, even 20 years after the US FDA has given approval, it's not very popular method of treatment. And I think that we need to go more into this to understand why in the context of the patients that we see in India, this is a very relevant form of treatment in CAD. Now, what do we do in EECP operation? There are 3 cuffs in the legs, tied in the legs. And you see these, they are inflated sequentially during diastole to push up the blood into the coronaries during diastole, and simultaneous deflation causes a reduction in afterload during systole. This is something how it works. This, if you just watch carefully, you see the 3 cuffs in the legs. They will inflate sequentially during systole and then deflate simultaneously during diastole, causing a decrease in afterload. This is the way it works. Now, what happens in the coronaries? You see this. This is the normal baseline coronary pressures, intracoronary pressures. At 100 millimeter pressure at the cuffs, this is what happens. You can see the diastolic phase pressure going up, 150 millimeters, 200 millimeters, 250 millimeters, and then 300 millimeters. So you can see this, the peaks. During diastole, the pressure in the coronaries are increased, though we put 300 millimeter pressure in the cuffs, but it does not translate to 300 millimeters there. It translates on 150 millimeter mercury during diastole. This causes an increase in diastolic pressures and peak diastolic Doppler flow velocity. You see this, the experimental heart, this is 1963, a dog heart after counterpulsation. You can see the perfusion seen here in the second picture. This is the machine, how it looks. This was the earlier machine which used to work on the hydraulic principle. Now we have pneumatic machines, small compact machines. Now, what's the evidence? Earlier studies done at the State University of New York, Stony Brook, small studies. Now, of course, in the US, the vessels are different. The need to use this type of treatment, especially when it is cost is not a factor for treatment there, is not much. Therefore, research in the US is not so much for this particular treatment, though it should be very high in India, if it's not. This is why I'm presenting this. They did study 33 patients of angina who underwent EECP, they followed the patients up for 5 years, and they found that 5-year survival without an interim event of 60% of patients treated with EECP, which appears similar to that seen with comparable populations treated with CABG or PTCA. They also saw that the perfusion defects in more than nearly 60% of the patients resolved, and 22% partially resolved, while 20 had no effect. So increased perfusion. Some small studies they did showed an increased perfusion with this particular treatment. Now, the MUST EECP trial is probably the only major randomized controlled trial. They studied 139 patients from 1995 to 1997. They compared EECP to sham controls, and they found the exercise duration increased in the active group significantly. Time to ST depression increased very significantly in the EECP group. Angina counts decreased significantly in the EECP group. Now, this is the follow. They followed up for 5 years, and if you see the first pie diagram, you see class 4 and class 3 are the major patients who entered this thing and EECP protocol. And after 3 years, you can see class 4 and class 3 are less than 20%. And no angina, class 1 and class 2 form the bulk of patients who had undergone EECP, though at the start of treatment, class 3 and class 4 predominated in the group of patients. Now, they also found that there is reduction in ER visits and hospitalization, resulting in a cost benefit with this treatment. Now, what are the postulated mechanisms? The first is increased coronary perfusion from enhanced collateral development, improved endothelial dysfunction, remodeling, and an increased cardiac output. Now, in CAD, how does it benefit? Angiogenesis has a major role to play in EECP, recruitment of collaterals and development of new collaterals. You can see here, post-treatment, the green bars in both the pressure-derived collateral flow index and the fractional flow reserve both increased significantly. Angiogenic factors were also released during EECP. HGF, FGF, VEGF all increased significantly during EECP, indicating angiogenesis taking place. Hematopoietic progenitor cells, CD34, CD45, 133, 45, CD, all increased during the procedure, indicating a good amount of angiogenesis. A few studies, I'm just giving a few studies, all of them show between 40 to 90% increase in the perfusion following EECP. Some of these studies, in the last two especially, I was associated with. Now, what happens to arterial hemodynamics? The travel time of reflected wave indicating, it increases, indicating vasodilation and a withdrawal of sympathetic drive in these patients. Arterial stiffness also decreases. Myocardial oxygen demand and wasted left ventricular energy also decreases. You can see this, the augmentation index is reducing. Left ventricular myocardial oxygen consumption indices like tension time index and gross product both decrease following EECP. So in coronary artery disease, summary of how it affects is improves stress perfusion, improves functional class, reduces anginal symptoms, improves quality of life, increases exercise time, and increases time to ST segment depression. This is a group of patients who are not amenable to the standard intervention protocols. Now, what happens in cardiac failure? I've got a good amount of experience in patients with cardiac failure because in India, very few people can afford a CRT or a CRT-D. So I prescribe this modality for them. Now, going into the physiology of cardiac failure, you know that all the neurohormones are raised very high in a patient with uncontrolled, decompensated cardiac failure, whether it's norepinephrine, renin, arginine, vasopressin, or ANP, or endothelin. Now, what happens after EECP? You can see this. Nitric oxide. The blue line is nitric oxide. It increases. The red line is endothelin 1. It decreases following EECP. This is 1 month post at the end. Angiotensin II activity also decreases dramatically and significantly during this procedure. Nitric oxide levels increase significantly, and the blood pressure also comes down, both systolic, diastolic, mean, and all indices of blood pressure or afterload to the heart comes down. ANP, BNP come down, though BNP comes down more dramatically than ANP. Pro-inflammatory markers like tumor necrosis factor, alpha vascular cell adhesion molecule, and monocyte chemoattractant protein all decrease. So in a summary of improvement, how clinical improvement is seen in patients with CCF on EECP is by improving ischemic LV dysfunction, angiogenesis and collateral recruitment, by normalizing endovascular tone and function with expression of nitric oxide and suppression of endothelin and malondialdehyde, by decreasing neurohormonal activation, renin-angiotensin system, ANP, BNP, and direct hemodynamic effects on afterload, preload, coronary blood flow, and cardiac output. Now, my personal experience, I've been using this equipment for 15 years. I do a lot of interventions, but as Dr. Gupta pointed out, there are some cases which we cannot, and there is no point trying to put in 10 stents and saying that I'd put in 10 stents. I believe in sending those patients for this form of treatment. Around 603 cases I've done, over 600. And my experience, the patients all started with, if you see, the yellow bar is what they started with, and the green bar is what we ended with. I mean, over this period of 15 years, most of the patients after treatment have been in class 1 or class 2, and very few, no patients have been in class 3 or class 4 after this treatment. That is angina class. Now the NYJ class, again, same. If you see after treatment, before treatment, no one was in NYJ 1 or 2. Most of them were in class 3 or class 4, and after treatment, most of them, there are no patients in class 3, class 4, most of them in class 1 or class 2. Ejection fraction, over the 603 patients that I've done, I have 22% average increase in ejection fraction. And some of the nuclear, we are doing perfusion scans for some of those patients. No, all of them may not be affordable, but those who are affordable, we are doing it. If you see this patient, is a 67-year-old male. The top panel shows before, and the bottom panel shows after EECP. See the perfusion defects that are seen in the inferior walls completely cleared after EECP. This is an 81-year-old man, and this person, I know him as a friend of mine, and he lived up to 92 before he passed away. This case, severe LV dysfunction, severe diffuse triple vessel disease, status post, 2 CABGs had gone, and you see this before. The left panel shows before, and the right panel shows after. After from 81 to 92, 11 years, just on one thing of EECP, he survived. He was given up by the surgeons. This is another case. You can see the top panel is pre-EECP. The bottom panel is post-EECP. Now, coming to indications, of course, here, there is this thing. We should have no doubt that this is not a substitute for angioplasty or CABG when indicated. However, if both these methodologies are not contemplated for whatever reason, then I feel that this option should be offered to the patient, and we get a good number of them in the Indian context, considering our vessels. Heart failure, both ischemic and non-ischemic, respond very well, though there is no recommendation as such from the ESC or the ACC/AHA for heart failure. Contraindications are very few. Severe peripheral arterial disease, so the pressure may not be transmitted, so you may get suboptimal. It's not a contraindication, there may be suboptimal results. Femoral venous disease, again the same problem. Valvular heart disease. Aortic stenosis, there is no problem. Aortic regurgitation can be aggravated. Mitral stenosis also is a problem, though mitral regurgitation secondary to CAD improves with EECP. Pulmonary artery hypertension, we have to be careful. RV dysfunction, we have to be careful. Left mainstem disease is contraindication only if the RCA is also diseased. But if the RCA is fully functional, I mean it's patent, then I think in this condition also you can use, so that perfusion pressure is transmitted through the RCA, through collaterals into the LAD territory. Now coming to the recommendations, 2012 ACC/AHA for angina, relief of refractory angina, they have recommended class 2B, level of evidence A. The ESC has is class 2A, level of evidence B. Now this is one. Now we have been able to convince the Tamil Nadu, I am from Tamil Nadu, we have been able to convince Tamil Nadu government, and this is the EECP lab there in Madras Medical College. We have 5 machines there, 50 patients every day. Of course, I am not involved directly in that operations there. And we have a good number of cases for this. Now here, I just want to make my last slide. Why is the cardiology fraternity not enthused with ECP, despite it being very safe procedure and non-invasive? And probably this is what is wrong. It's non-invasive, so it's not attractive. If it's invasive, it's attractive to the intervention cardiologist. If it's non-invasive, it's not attractive. Of course, other financial considerations also may be there. Now, The other reason why is because it's not totally non-invasive and because it's a safe procedure, it is being used by non-qualified practitioners and is being clubbed alongside dubious therapies like chelation and ozone therapy. So if you advise, if as a cardiologist you advise ECP, the patient will think you are another quack. So this is one of the reasons why credibility for this particular mode of treatment, which is very, very relevant in our context, is not caught up in here. And thank you for your patience. I think to get the questions together.
Great presentation.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I request both the speakers to kindly join our chairpersons. We'll have 10 minutes for discussion. Professor Nair, you can join. Thank you. Over to the chairpersons.
This microphone now.
Professor Nair, thank you for a very interesting presentation, not only in angina, but in patients with congestive heart failure, That's an area, I think, which is very wide open, and we feel very dissatisfied and depressed to see that a lot of these patients, despite of all the pharmaceutical therapy, we can't improve the lifestyle. Would like to know the large series in which patients who had congestive heart failure were treated on this mechanism, with this ECP. Role of ECP in congestive heart failure. Any large series you can...
So normally what we do is we dehydrate the patient completely. Keep the patient in the ICU on inotropes and diuretics till the patient is dry. Then we start. So in some cases, I have started with the patient still on inotropes. Patient on IV inotropes undergoing ECP. Over a period of time, we've been able to remove the inotropes off and send the patient. I've got very good results. Now this, because the reason why I'm interested in this is there's so many patients that as I see in interventional cardio, I also do a lot of interventions. I see the young guys especially put 10 stents, 5 stents, 6 stents. I don't think it's warranted. There are so many other ways, cheaper ways to manage these type of cases.
Any echocardiographic proof of improvement?
Yeah, we do echocardiography before and after. Though perfusion study is a more accurate reflector of the improvement. Echo may not show, but clinically most of them, 99% of my personal experience, they're very happy with the treatment, they come back. Now, another advantage of this is it can be repeated without any harm to the patient. 3 to 5 years of the follow-up recorded. After that, I generally ask the patient to repeat this thing. It's 35 hours, 1 hour per day for 35 days or so. I've also done this for pre-surgical. Before CABG, severe LV dysfunction, the surgeons anticipate the use of IABP. Then what we have done is, we have put these patients on 10 hours course of ECP before the surgery, and we found that the use of IABP has come down. Intraoperative use of IABP and its complications have come down when we give this. We published this in the Heart Failure Journal.
What happens to pedal edema of these patients?
Yeah, that's what. See, pedal edema should not be there. So we have to dehydrate the patient, completely dry up the patient before taking the patient up surgery. RV dysfunction also, we have to be a little careful. If you see your pH in this.
Dr. Parashar, was very elegant and Dr. Parashar, very elegant and comprehensive presentation of tricuspid valve regurgitation. You covered congenital, infectious, traumatic, as well as endocarditis and device-induced. I think that's the most comprehensive presentation I've ever seen. Very elegant. And actually, the problem with tricuspid regurgitation, as you noted, as you rightly pointed out, diagnosis, early diagnosis, and negligence by cardiologists and internal medicine doctors, the tricuspid regurgitation is not a problem. Once it progresses, it causes ventricular interdependence and left ventricular failure also, and patient can go into shock and hypotension. But now, the question to you is, what's the best strategies? So one is prevention. Number two is when you put tricuspid valve, prosthetic valve, you rightly pointed out poor prognosis, and also thrombosis rate is very high, 25%. So what's the best management strategies that you would propose to all of us?
When a person like Dr. O.P. Yadav is sitting here, why do you ask me? So what I told that, what I could gather was that, yes, don't even a mild to moderate TR may be bad. And sometimes they say that even if the tricuspid annular dilatation is much more. Previously they said 40, somebody said 35, and on surgery when it is about 7 centimeters, even if there is no significant TR, then why a prophylactic annuloplasty should be done. And a ring annuloplasty is much better in a organic TR rather than just a repair or so. Rest of course the boss can tell. So my position is very clear. Any question pertaining to surgery, O.P. Yadav. Any question pertaining to echo, Naveen Nanda. I am standing very comfortable, I am sitting here. But this was my guess. What about you? What are your surgical views on this?
But my problem is, whatever best I can offer, you have already offered.
I have
So I
a
think it
question
should
to
be done.
Dr. Nair. We practice in evidence-based medicine. In Mumbai, in this type of EECP, there are about a couple of centers where you do a baseline myocardial perfusion study, which you showed. But how do you select your patient? So in that case, you have to do a viability studies. If there is a triple vessel, let me complete. There are triple vessel disease with an infarcted scarred myocardium. Even we have seen the lot of failure cases. Even we repeat after so many sittings, it comes the same, ejection fraction, everything same. So the basic question is that one has to do a viability studies before you start this type of technique.
I agree with you, sir. Viability study is ideal. No, we are substituting it with just a perfusion study. So viability will be more scientific before and after also.
Because this is a basic need.
Now, another
for
thing
doing
I'd
this
like to
test.
point out, sir, in case,
I
suppose
think
we
that-
get a patient who doesn't have enough viable myocardium,
I think
I
that's-
still feel it can be offered because with whatever little it have, this treatment will improve. You know, like I said in my second slide, you're trying to delay death in this patient and give a reasonable quality of life to that patient. So if I say there is not enough viable myocardium for surgery, therefore there is no enough indication of ECP, then I'm denying this thing to the patient.
No, minimum amount of viable
Yeah, maybe,
myocardium
yes.
which should
We
be
have not
done is
standardized.
20% or more. If you have, then definitely
yeah.
it can increase the ejection fraction after
Yeah.
your
That
ECP.
standardization we have not done, and
Yeah.
I think it's a valid point, sir.
I think that's very important point, because why it has not been so acceptable is that most of the centers don't select their cases properly, with the result that the desired results are not obtained. I think the assessment of patients prior to putting the patients on this therapy is very important, so that the patients have got some viable myocardium and they show improvement after the treatment.
Yeah, one example, one of the centers, even in Chennai, we have a lot of centers run by non-cardiologists and non-qualified people. In one place, for patient went there for severe breathlessness, because they advertise a lot. They went there for severe breathlessness. Patient was advised ECP, underwent a few sittings, but breathlessness did not come. There was no improvement, and in fact, there was some deterioration. So they came to a cardiologist. And on echo, what we find is it's a severe mitral stenosis that has caused the breathlessness. So these are reasons why, because it is available to people who are not understanding the way it works and when it should be used, the credibility of this treatment is not there.
Could I kindly ask you a question, please? Whenever there's new blood vessel formation, there's angiogenesis, there should be a growth factor, because without growth factors,
Yes, I've shown
new
this
blood
slide.
vessels cannot move. Is there a way you could measure growth factors in this?
No, I've shown you a study
I know.
where all the growth factor, vascular endothelial growth factor, fibroblast growth factor, all have increased. Now, I have not done the study. It was I don't remember exactly.
Another thing about growth factors is you can switch on and switch off growth factors. So whatever you are doing is you are switching on a growth factor, isn't it? So that will be very helpful in other system treatments, brain and so on.
Maybe.
So thank you very
Maybe,
much.
sir.
Well, yeah.
I just want to say hats off to you being an interventional cardiologist and focusing more light on this very important therapy. In fact, I'm practicing in Houston, and we had several ECPs in our location, and clearly there was a very, very interesting case, bringing up the point of the lack of improvement on EF, where a patient was actually put on the transplant list in the Methodist hospital in Houston, and I was treating the case, and basically his EF was 18%, complete workup done for the transplant. He was on the list. I advised him of ECP therapy. After the ECP was done, his functional capacity was nil before he started. Angina multiple times in a day. After the ECP treatment was completed, 35 sessions over 35 days, his EF remained the same, did not improve, but his functional capacity was off the roof. He could do tap dancing. He was a Hispanic male. He was tap dancing in my office. He could walk 20 minutes. He got taken off the transplant list. He was considered too healthy to be on the transplant list, and they couldn't figure out what it was. It was, of course, the ECP
I had
therapy.
similar experiences where the echo ejection fraction does not improve dramatically, but the perfusion improves, and probably, and the patients improve, clinically very happy. So.
Did you dance with him also or no?
That's classified.
Mr. Chairman, that's all the time that we have for the discussion on this session. May I request all the chairpersons to kindly step forward and present the citations to our invited learned speakers, Colonel Parashar and Professor Nair. I request Professor Khalilullah, Professor Harshvardhan and others to kindly step forward.
Professor Harshvardhan is here. In Delhi, lot of ECCP centers came up. Many centers did come up in the private sector, only in the private sector. And till date, I don't think there is any government ECP machine, or Dr. Harshvardhan might be knowing better, that as for the only, we think that the medical treatment, adequate medical treatment and the best of medical treatment, if it is doing the job, I think ECP may not be very at all beneficial.
Thank you very much, chairpersons, and we'd like to congratulate both our speakers for sharing their wisdom with us.